Yo, what's going on, guys? Better late than never here, back at it with another banger video. And in today's video, I am finally going to be counting down the 40 best singles of 2025 in my opinion. Usually I do songs, but this year we're doing singles because part of what took this video so long was my indecisiveness. So I just narrowed it down a little bit more for myself. Now, I've already wasted enough time. If I want to get this video out by the end of the year, let's get into it, because I have to. Now, what better way to kick off our best songs of the year list and end of year list season, because I still intend on doing the other ones, than getting freaky with Miss Kim Petras. That's right. Number 40 is going to be Freak It. Just an absolute complextro and EDM banger. Really feels like Kim Petras finally taken ownership of her music, and it's such a cathartic track. Not just based on the story behind it, but based on how it sounds. It's a freaky anthem for all the freaks out there. Now, in at number 39, unfortunately, we're only going to have one Album of the Year user song on this list. But we're making it count with Joseph by Matt C. Now, Matt C is an artist who I am quite familiar with. Just, you know, very much like an ambient musician is what I was aware of, but on this track, out of nowhere, we've got a Lemon Twigs-esque psychedelic pop banger. Really sweet track, really fun track. Now, another track that's sweet and fun in at number 38 is going to be Sweet Danger by Obong JR. This song is so much fun, such a vibrant and lush track. Obviously, taking in the Afrobeats influences in Obong JR's music, as well as some influences from other genres. Just a very entertaining track on a very entertaining album. A track that is just as amazing as Sweet Danger, in my opinion, is going to be our number 37 track, Stick by Jim Legacy. Now, originally I was looking at including Father, because I think that that's the bigger of these two songs, but Stick just has this emotional resonance to it that I haven't heard in pretty much anything else from this year. This subgenre of UK rap that has really taken over this year with the likes of Jim Legacy and Quez E, YT, Len, and many more really popping off, has been such a fresh and exciting sound to really sink my teeth into, and I'm only hopeful that it continues to stick around into 2026. Number 36, however, is going to be a completely different track, and we're going with the raw and primal The Demon of Unreality Limping Like a Dog by the Callous Daoboys. Now, the Callous Daoboys are a band who I discovered this year, mathcore legends, although this track takes us into a bit more of a conventional metal approach with a super catchy chorus and a fantastic breakdown towards the end. If you're just looking for a very classic sort of metal banger, you don't get much better than this in the year of 2025. Next up onto the list, we've got another banger, and that's going to be Girl Feels Good, FKA Twigs. Now, spoiled for choice with the singles on Eusexua. This one is the one that really sort of stands out to me most, though. You've got that trip hop influence, that super catchy synth bass thing going bump, 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 bump. a bit of a break beat on here. Just a banger. All out banger. And a sea of bangers on that album. Now, a track that might match a bit of the anger of number 36 is going to be Descartes by Sprints. Sprints, a band who really caught people's attention in 2024, spoiling us with another album this year. And this track is just them doing what they do best, a bit of noisy post-punk carnage. That is so relevant and so important while just being an all-out banger. But that's not going to be the only Irish band who makes this list, as in number 33 we're going to have a bit of a tamer track, but another fantastic track from an Irish band. That's going to be It's Amazing to Be Young by Fontaines DC. Big year for them, coming off the back of their Romance album from 2024. A batch of bonus tracks came out this year, and this is the one that stood out most to me. It's a sugary sweet, nostalgic, almost like 90s indie number, in a similar vein to If You Like Favourite from that same album, or even a track like Bug, for example. Next up, another track that's got a bit of nostalgia to it for me is going to be number 32's It Girl by Jade. Jade, of course, formerly of Little Mix. Real fans of the channel will know that that was my first ever concert, was Little Mix. So I'm naturally biased towards this anyway, but between the soaring vocals on this song and the booming house beats, it's the perfect track for a party. A track that might scare people off from the party, maybe a bit of a litmus test, is going to be number 31's Crank by Slater. Another artist who spoiled us with amazing singles this year. Really hard to pick one. But I did finally land on this one. This just doesn't sound like anything else I've heard this year. An absolutely ferocious Jersey Club-esque banger. Super unconventional track from Slater. Really aggressive. If you like No Comma from last year, you'll like this one. Now, another track that was very surprising to me was number 30's Live Right by Joey Valance and Bray. Joey Valance and Bray, very fun, likable hip-hop duo, but this track doesn't really draw from the same like Beastie Boys and 90s rap influence that a lot of their other stuff does. It almost goes into like an indie direction. Really calling back to those like massive MGMT and like M83 days with these big synths and a yelled chorus of "As long as I got my friends, as long as I got my friends," and it's just maybe a slightly melancholic but total party anthem. This track is absolutely fantastic. Another track that really wowed me this year is going to be number 29's Free by Little Sims. Just drawing on those classic Little Sims neo soul and jazz influences and turning it into such an uplifting, triumphant rap track. It really is a freeing song, and couldn't really have been executed by anyone as well as Little Sims did on here. Number 28 is going to be Uno 2 by Viagra Boys. This track is just... Where do we even start with this one? A kooky post-punk banger, from the perspective of a dog who's scared of his vet. It sounds a bit stupid on the surface, but just melodically, there's so much catchiness to this track that I can't help but listen to it over and over and over and over again. Now, a track that reminds me of Viagra Boys a little bit is going to be number 27's Catch These Fists by Wet Leg. Wet Leg came through with their highly anticipated sophomore album this year, and I think they delivered on the promise and then some. I've been singing Moisturizer's praises since it came out, and let's be honest, we all knew that it was going to be a fantastic album when this explosive lead single was released. Another track that's explosive, but from an artist who I was nowhere near as familiar with, is Paris Paloma's Good Boy, in at number 26. Paris was not an artist who I'd heard of going into this year, but randomly stumbling across this track and its accompanying music video was an absolute blessing. Super relevant track once again, tearing a lot into things like toxic masculinity and wealth disparity and stuff. And I think it just does such a great job, and such a timely job of it as well. Paris's vocals are fantastic on here, particularly in the bridge. Yeah, check this out if you like Florence and the Machine, I guess. Number 25 is going to be Lonely in the Jungle by Kamari. Kamari, another artist who I wasn't too familiar with going into this year, but holy shit, he makes such amazing music. Head in a Jar was going to be originally my pick, but this track has such an undeniable groove to it. R&B banger for people who like R&B. Another track that banged this year is You Can Die Laughing by Pretty Fun. I think this year as a whole has been fantastic for underground hip-hop, UK and US, as well as some other artists from other countries. It's been a really exciting time to delve into underground rap, and Pretty Fun immediately stands out as one of the pillars just now, with his hyper melodic, almost digicore infused rage sound. You've got these amazing synths, fantastic beat, and a great chorus to all boot. Total anthem on here. Total anthem. Another track that means a little more to me personally than maybe any of the tracks on this list do is going to be The Little Loch Ness by Violet Pony. I don't know if this is an official track. It just came out on their YouTube channel, but this track just, like most Violet Pony songs for me, it was scarily relatable when I first heard it. And it's a track that I've not been able to stop myself going back to. I might have to move on before I get a bit too sad, but that track is fantastic. Someone who wouldn't want me to be sad is the person described in this Gorillaz lead single, with Sparks, the Happy Dictator. The singles for this upcoming record as well have been truly mythical, almost. This track in particular, though, stood out to me is maybe the most safe of the singles, with a classic sort of Plastic Beach-esque sound, but you still have some zaniness, of course, with Sparks in the mix. Where this track really gets me is with its storytelling verses, and then its amazing melodic chorus. No more bad news. It's a track I buy into a lot. Now, a track that definitely isn't conventional, in at number 21, is going to be Bodhid Harma by Agriculture. Just a relentless 7-minute black metal cinematic experience. From the moment that those bludgeoning riffs come in at the start, dun 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 dun, to the very end, there almost isn't a let up in energy. This track is just absolutely nuts, and introduced me to a really cool band. So now, another artist I was introduced to this year, this year has been a year of introduction as we get into our top 20, was Australian producer, DJ, singer-songwriter Nina Geraci, who I discovered through some sets of hers being recommended to me on the old YouTube. On the old YouTube. I say on YouTube. But the track that really hooked me into this project and brought me into Nina as a whole is going to be the sugar sweet 2000s nostalgic iPod Touch. Maybe one of the best melodically written songs of the year. From verse to chorus to drop, every melody just flies out with so much color and so much authenticity. This track is fantastic. Now, another track that got me as somber as iPod Touch does at times, and even worse, is going to be The Birds Don't Sing by Clips, John Legend, and Voices of Fire. Now, this album spoiled us for a choice as well, with some amazing singles. Originally, I was thinking it was going to be Ace Trumpets, but or even the legendary and amazing production on So Be It was also very tempting. But this track just feels so much more emotionally vulnerable than almost anything on the album, and it's crazy that it's the opener. It wasn't a track that really stood out to me on my first listen, but it's one that I've gone back to more than many others off that album, just for the raw bleakness of Malice and Pusha T's verses as they talk about losing their parents. And especially Malice's verse is just so potent on here. And you can't, of course, go wrong with a John Legend chorus. The man's solo music might not be the most interesting ever, but he's got an amazing voice for a hip hop and soul fusion track, which this track very much is. Fantastic song. Really, truly super poignant. Another track that is just as poignant is going to be The Sofa by Wolf Alice, and at number 18. Wolf Alice, a band who, when they first came on the scene, I could not have called where they have gone to since. Their transformation from a noise pop and a shoegaze and an indie band into the almost glam-esque presentation of The Clearing. In this track, which is just a piano rock masterpiece. Such an amazingly written song from start to finish, which it does have a bit of a longer runtime than a lot of other tracks this band has put out. Yeah, I knew that this was going to make the list the second I heard it. Another artist who really wowed me this year with a bit of a shift in sound is Ali X, and I'm going to be including her track Reunite in at number 17. I'm going to be seeing Ali X live, and I can't wait to see this track. We were obviously spoiled this year by her as well, immediately bouncing back after the amazing Girl with No Face from last year with this new album, Happiness Is Going to Get You, and this track just stood out to me as a single so much. Synth pop, sophistopop banger, but with a bit of a gothic twist. You know, it's what LAX does best, and it was fantastic to hear. Number 16 is going to be You Got Time and I Got Money by Smurs. This track just blew my mind as well. It's a hard track to really put your finger on and describe what makes it so amazing, but it's just got such a dreamlike quality to it and such a warm atmosphere. Fantastic, really fantastic song. It just sounds like floating away, and I'm happy to if this is where I'm going. But a track that'll keep me down with just some raw, grounded beauty is going to be my favourite country song of the year, number 15, Oneida by Tyler Childers. This feels like a timeless love song. Exactly what I had to say about Sadness is a Gift by Adrienne Lenker. I have to say about this track, it feels like it could have came out 60 years ago or 60 years from now and still have the same impact that it does this year. No gimmicks to this track. It is just an amazing and beautiful call to action, and with its swinging rock instrumental, Tyler Childers' fantastic vocals, and some really heartfelt, beautiful romantic lyrics. It is just an absolute stunner for the genre this year. Next up, we're going to be ramping the energy up. No more slow dancing. We're going to be raving to number 14's Pray to That by Fat Dog. Fat Dog just continuing to prove that they're not a flash in the pan. After their Woof album, I loved Peace Song, and this single's even better. Just keeping those soaring, blood-pumping EBM bangers going on this track. But this track, it feels like it's got a little bit something more to it as well, with that outro towards the end. Next in number 13, an artist who definitely showed something a bit different this year. Maybe the most shocking lead single we saw in the entirety of 2025. That is, of course, going to be the mind-blowing Berghain by Rosalia, Björk, and Yves Tumor. I knew from the second those group vocals and orchestral elements kicked in at the start of the track that we were in for something new with Rosalia. But with how different this track is from what else we've heard from her, and how different this album is from everything else we've heard from her, I can't help but hear it and think it feels natural for her voice. And her amazing voice at that. This track is just so daring and enthralling from start to finish. It is definitely the most grand song that I've heard in 2025, and it creates something that I don't think we got from any other artist this year. Such an exciting and vivid track. Now, number 12 is going to be a bit of a bias inclusion. I'm not seeing a lot of people talk about this track in their end of year lists, but we're going to be going with Unravel by Poppy. Of course she was going to make the list. Of course she was going to make the list. Let's get it over with. This track really reminds me of some of the more radio-centric tracks from Negative Spaces, you know, almost quite similar to a track like The Cost of Giving Up, for instance. But this track, Poppy continues to reinvent herself with some breakbeat influence and a fantastic breakdown at the end. One of the best metal choruses of the year, and ultimately, when it comes down to it, my favourite metal song of the year. Number 11, another track by one of my favourite artists, but one that people seem to more unanimously agree on is fantastic. We're going with Stateside by Pink Pantheress. This year was just another breakthrough for her. It feels like she's had a breakout year every single year. since really blowing up in 2021. But this year was what sent her to pop superstardom. And this track, I can't help but think, is a major reason why. You've got her doing what she does best, and that is a throwback dance banger with really sweet yet fun and maybe a little cheeky lyrics. You can be my American hot, hot boy. Just fantastic track. But in at number 10, we're going to have another dance track. I think this year was a fantastic year to be a dance fan. Number 10 is going to be K-Pop Bitch by The Deep. This track is just so much fun from start to finish. You've got this, again, Complextro influence that I call back to on Freak It by Kim Petras, also Frost Children leaning into it this year, and maybe even some influence in the Nina Geraci track. It's been really interesting to see the sound of early 2010s EDM be called upon, and I'm glad it's happening. This track does it so fantastically, and The Deep's just had an amazing year this year. Fantastic track. Next up, and at number 9, we're going with a different throwback to a completely different era, and that is going to be late 90s, early 2000s pop rock on After's Outbound. After, a band who really blew up this year, releasing 2 EPs that I thought were fantastic. Unfortunately, I'm not going to have a great chance to shout those EPs out, so I'm going to do that here. I love After. I'm really excited to see where this band goes. I love their influence from baggy music, as a massive fan of that Stone Roses record. Just, yeah, we're getting something really exciting with this project, and Outbound, I think, is the perfect example of it. Just such, I can't even describe it. It feels like such a new take on something that we've heard done a million times before, that even if it's a bit pastiche, even if it's a bit nostalgic, it definitely feels completely new at the exact same time. A really exciting project. Speaking of excitement, we're going to be going with, I think, one of the most important tracks of the year and one of the most relevant tracks of the year. We are going to be going with Pop Girl by Lexi Lou. Now, originally, I was going to go with FFFFF, because that's probably my favorite track from her new EP, but I think that this track just feels so current and so real that it had to make the list. I love this track so much, and yeah, it's just it's a really good song. Got a bit of a Dutch house thing going on. Great. Just fantastic. And yeah, I'm only putting it on the list because of how much I relate to it. Skin clear, hair shiny. Let's go into number 7 with another callback to that sort of baggy influenced pop rock era. This time it's going to be Yule's do 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 do. I'm not sure if it's my favorite track on this album, but it's definitely, I think, one of the most melodic and one of the most triumphant, I guess, again. This track completely soars, and it is so, so good. Another track that completely soars is this dream pop throwback by Antonias, Dulce Corazone. This track just blows my mind every time I hear it. the bit where she says, "Como de mi adorame." Sorry if I mispronounced that, but it's just one of my favourite vocal runs this year. Such a groovy, dreamy banger. Please check out Antonius if you haven't heard them already, as we get in to our top 5 singles of the year. Before we get into our top 5, I'm going to give some honourable mentions, because like I said, I was incredibly indecisive with this list, so a bunch of songs that I really love missed out. Those songs are as follows: What Was That by Lorde, Ordinary Loss by Health, Silver Swarm by Thornhill, Headphones On by Addison Rae, Music by Underscores, Body the Pistol by Fentanyl, Pop Star in the Bits by Young Iman and Eileen de Saint Verodia, Motives by Death to Ricky, and finally Salsa Verde by PPC. I am not risking getting this video taken down because it has been recorded so many times. Fuck you too, microphones. But let's get into our top 5 for such an amazing year for music. We're going to be kicking it off with, I think, one of the most beautiful and cathartic moments in all of this year. And that is, of course, going to be the new Miley Cyrus record. You want to talk about an artist finding their sound and making their project in their own vision. Something beautiful. There's not much better than in terms of that kind of story this year. And my personal favourite of the singles and my favourite track on the album as a whole is this Brittany Howard collab, Walk of Fame. You could have called that coming from a mile off with my love for disco music, but this track is just such an amazing take on disco. From the moment the track goes to the end, it doesn't let up in groove, it doesn't let up in energy, and it doesn't let up in some of the most insane ballsy vocals I've heard of the year, with Brittany Howard just completely taking off on this song, really stealing the show on Miley's album, but Brittany Howard just blew my mind on this track. Miley Cyrus comes through with some really fun, sassy verses on here, and you've got a fantastic chorus. What more could you want? This track, similar to what I said about Oneida, this is one we'll come back to 30 years from now and think back on as a classic. Another track that is extremely classic already, in my opinion, is going to be my favourite rap song of the year. And that is going to be Run, Run, Run Part 2 by McKinley Dixon. McKinley had a lot to live up to with that first Run, Run, Run track and with Beloved Paradise Jazz as a whole, and I think he more than did that this year. I keep spoiling the best albums list. I don't care. This track is so uplifting. It's a word I've used a lot in this video, but this track is the definition, picture next to the word in the dictionary, example of that triumph. McKinley, obviously, such an assured rapper. The lyrics and writing of this track are fantastic as always, and the instrumental is what really got me on this one, with those keys coming in. That just is one of the most euphoric moments in music this year as a whole. Fantastic song. Now, another track that is euphoric to me is going to be this Rochelle Jordan track, Doing It Too, in at number 3. We've talked a lot about influence on this list, but not a lot about being influenced, which is what this track is all about. Whatever you do, I'll be doing it too. And yeah, this track just makes you want to move. Call back to those early 90s house days, with these fantastic R&B vocals. Rochelle Jordan just blew my mind this year, and this track, I think, sums all that up. Now, in at number 2 is going to be probably the artist who spoiled us with the most singles that were contenders for this list. And literally, like, the minute of recording, I decided on this track. That's going to be Star Eyes by Magdalena Bay. This track is just absolutely heartbreaking. Such a sad song. I don't know if I want to go into it too much in this video, because I did say I was going to do a video where I talked about all the singles, so I might save some of my words for that. But just know that this track is dreamy and atmospheric as it is heartbreaking. Star Eyes, it's one of probably the most starry song I've ever heard. Truly a fantastic track, and I can't wait to discuss it more in a later video. But as we finally get to number 1, you'll have worked it out, I imagine. Because there was no way that this song wasn't going to make the list. In at number 1, we're going with the best song of 2020, well, the best single of 2025, the best song of 2025, and maybe the best song of the decade, period. That is, of course, going to be Taxes by Geese. Geese completely took it to another level this year, even surpassing somehow 2023's fantastic 3D country record with this one. And yeah, this track just is fantastic. It goes for so much, with influences from neo-psychedelia, heartland rock, indie music, and even a bit of the country stuff from before, with also some of the more folky direction that Cameron took on his solo album Heavy Metal last year. This track, it takes it all, throws in this crazy tension and release, and creates a track that has non-stop moments of pure bliss musically. From the opening notes and minimal percussion until the amazing end with those guitars and I think pianos. This track is just fantastic. And the lyrics are amazing as well. What can I say? Geese rule this year. Now, as the video comes to a close, I'm going to thank you humbly very much for watching it. It has been truly an honor this year to upload, and we're going to be continuing into next year. So please do consider leaving a like on the video if you enjoyed it. It tells me what you guys like and brings a little smile to my face every time I see one. If you really enjoyed this video and are interested in more music discussion, 3 more end of year lists, although they'll probably end up being start of year lists if we're honest with ourselves, and album reactions, please don't prove I'm right. Please consider subscribing to the channel. We'd love to have you on the team. And yeah, I'm just gonna thank you once again for such an amazing year. It truly has been fantastic. to be on this platform this year. I love you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll catch you in the next one. Haven't thought of a name yet. Signing out.